All right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. It looks like most people are connected to audio. Still see some people joining the room right now, but we'll let them get set up as we go through the introduction here. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Kevin Drakulik, and I'm part of the marketing team here at Unittrends. I just wanted to take care of a couple things before we get going today. So first and foremost, everyone on the call today is on listen-only mode. So if you're talking to us, we can't hear you. So what I would advise you guys to do, if you have any questions or anything at all, use the Q&A functionality on the right-hand side of the WebEx. Strongly encourage you guys, want this to be as interactive as possible. If you have any questions whatsoever, we'll either get to you during the webinar or after the webinar. We can follow up with you directly as well. So we're also going to be recording this and sending out kind of a recap email and a link to the recording, so be on the lookout for that. Secondly, everyone in attendance today has been entered to win a $500 Amazon gift card. So that's very exciting. We're going to reach out to the winner after the conclusion of today's webinar. So be on the lookout. Maybe you'll be the lucky winner of today's $500 Amazon gift card. Thirdly, if you haven't, go ahead and like us on Facebook and LinkedIn. Follow us on LinkedIn, I should say. We're always constantly doing educational pieces like this. We have new product releases kind of walking through our new version 10.3 software that we have out right now. So always doing kind of fun giveaways like this one. So go ahead, follow us there, and make sure that you attend more webinars such as this one. So with all those nitty-gritty details taken care of, I am proud to turn it over to Max Lindauer, who is our solutions engineer, who is going to run us through today's webinar on successful data management.
Thanks so much, Kevin, and thanks everybody for joining today. My name is Max Lindauer. I'm one of the solutions engineers here at Unittrends. And for today's webinar, we're going to dive into how backups can help you drive a successful data management strategy. So I thought to kick things off, instead of talking to what can help drive a successful data management strategy, kind of talking about what data management is not, right? So that kind of reminded me of this Dilbert cartoon. So just kind of wanted to start right. Just losing your data and being able to recover it in whatever way possible, right? Dilbert was able to hack in to the government's secret database here. That's not data management, right? And one of the challenges when it comes to data management is the responsibility of managing and administrating all of your data is shifting, right? So at this point, IT needs to really change its thinking from just administering backups to managing a comprehensive data strategy. Larger enterprises have records managers, right? These folks are trained in data management techniques to manage the process. But most small to mid-sized organizations, say those with fewer than 1,000 employees, they depend on IT to fill that role. Data management without the right tools can become an overwhelming task. Without intelligent automation, you and your business can really choke on the process. You can't depend on old ad hoc manual processes, as the challenge of administrating larger and larger volumes of data continue to increase considerably faster than the IT resources charged with managing it. So to talk through kind of some of the major data management challenges and really what the overall goal of data management can really be summed up as keeping just the right data for only the length of time it's required. While this is easily said, it's actually quite difficult, and you can err in multiple directions. So one of the most common errors or challenges when it comes to data management is keeping too much data. This is the most popular data management strategy. It ultimately is expensive, complex, manually intensive, and not necessary or really legally prudent, right? This strategy usually depends on cold media such as tape or removable media such as disk, multiple storage devices, both replicating to the cloud and or remote locations. Oftentimes you can lose track of what files are where, which makes all of this archived data relatively worthless. Data managers understand old data can only hurt you, right? Courts accept that enterprises have data destruction processes. As long as those are followed, there's no penalty for not keeping old records. However, if a file exists beyond its destruction date, it can be used as evidence against the company. So there's a lot of risk with holding onto data for too long, both legally and just practically, right? On the other end of that spectrum, another challenge is keeping too little data. Data is the crown jewel of any enterprise. backups are the primary source of all of these files that can be used for a wide variety of business processes. Without the right files, you risk these programs, you put these programs at risk, right? Recovering from ransomware. New breeds of ransomware are taking longer to infect before making their presence known. Having a valid backup from before that infection occurred is one of the only ways to really ensure recovery without resorting to having to pay criminals to get your data back. As well as lost file recovery, right? You get an email that the CEO lost an important PowerPoint presentation from 6 months ago. It's incredibly important to be able to recover and find that information, right? Both for your own job security and for the success of the business. And then, of course, compliance auditing, right? There are different industries and governments mandating the length of time to keep certain types of data. Deleting data too early or losing track of where it's stored may expose you and your company to compliance violations. And then on the other hand, keeping data too long, right? Different types of data have different life cycles, right? A stock quote is really only valuable for a minute or so as it changes so rapidly. The score of the last Red Sox game is interesting, but really only for about 24 hours until there's another game tomorrow. Financial results are critical for over a year. So treating all files with the same life cycle and storage strategy ensures you're going to drown with unnecessary data with no business use. So in many enterprises, obsolescence is a bigger problem than storage volumes. Keeping data on tapes that cannot be read by the current generation of drives puts you at the mercy of legacy drives, right? So data formats also change over time. Old files need to be converted to new formats for the data to be recoverable and readable. Both of these issues can make old files worthless. And not keeping data long enough is an incredible challenge as well, right? Record retention schedule for large pharmaceutical manufacturer lists depend on the different types of data and how long they need to be preserved. Almost 1/2 of listed data must be held in perpetuity. Notes from the board of directors, records of employees exposed to hazard materials, any information on human drug trials are mandated to be preserved forever. Now, while your industry may not have the same degree of critical information as a pharmaceutical manufacturer, your organization has data that needs to be kept for a very long period of time. Many of these requirements are defined in industry mandates such as HIPAA, the 2006 European Data Retention Directives, and IRS tax laws. So I'm going to kick it back to Kevin here for our first polling question of the webinar.
Great, thanks, Max. Yeah, just want to get a general feel of everyone in the room, and we appreciate your participation today. What are your challenges with data management? Is it keeping too much data? Maybe you're not keeping enough data. Maybe you're keeping data too long, or maybe you're not keeping it long enough. So just want to get general feedback of the room and see what complications you guys have with data management. So I'll give you guys a minute or two just to complete the poll here, and then we'll continue back with Max. All right, some people just finishing up, so I'll leave it open for about 30 more seconds here. Some good results so far. I'll let you guys lock in those answers. All right, and some interesting results there. It looks like a lot of people keeping data for too long. A lot of other people are keeping too much data. So some interesting results, and I'll flip it back to you, Max. Oh, not sure if you're on mute, Max.
Yep, thanks, Kevin. So thanks again, everybody, for answering the polling questions. It's really important and helpful for us to understand the challenges that the folks here on the call are facing when it comes to data management. And like Kevin mentioned, the most common issues and challenges really, at least for the folks here on the call, revolve around keeping too much data and keeping data for too long. Now, they're not keeping enough or not keeping data long enough. There's certainly some folks that filled that out, but the majority of folks are just keeping too much and keeping data for too long. So that's interesting to kind of understand about the folks here on the call. And the Unittrends solution, as we'll talk through it, can certainly help you manage that to ensure that your data volumes are appropriately sized, keeping data for just the amount of time that is required through GFS rotation, cloud storage, and the like. So beyond data management and data archival, right, the most important piece of all of this, especially when it comes to backing up data, is recovery. So I like to say when I'm talking to folks, Unittrends isn't a backup company, we're a bring it back company. Ultimately, backups are only as valuable as your ability to recover the data within it. And the number one job when it comes to backup and DR, right, is ensuring fast recovery from downtime. Moving backups to remote locations means having to move them back before a recovery can occur. Backups stored in public clouds or on tape can slow recovery. There needs to be regular and comprehensive testing to ensure that recovery can happen within that corporate mandated RTO and RPO goals. So when we talk about some of the data management techniques that can help solve those problems, data challenges are not going away, right? They're growing more and more each year. New regulations, changing data protection and storage requirements, data volumes growing at increasing rates. Old media is proliferating, and corporations are still depending on IT to meet these challenges. Fortunately, there are new tools designed to manage backups as part of a comprehensive data management process. So when we talk about some of these strategies, automation. Today's backup appliances will minimize the time and effort required to optimize a data management strategy. We do this by delivering business policy automation. Separate creation, replication, and management procedures can be set based on each individual virtual machine or physical server. Finance data can be managed one way. Sales data can be managed in another way based on those corporate requirements. Once the management schedule is set, it runs automatically. So it'll send status emails to administrators that will reduce the need for manual oversight of the process and give folks in IT back more time to handle the thousands of other things that IT is responsible for within the business. Beyond automation, immediate accessibility. No longer should archives be housed in inaccessible cold storage. This data has value and needs to be easily accessed when required. New deduplication technologies can greatly decrease the size of the files, and larger drives allow keeping more files on the backup devices to speed access and maximize the value of those archives. Today, specially designed backup browsers exist to make searching archive files easier. Once particular data elements are identified, files can easily be placed on hold, released from hold, replicated, and of course recovered as needed. Archives in cold and offline storage cannot provide this level of business value. So in terms of accessibility, this really comes down as well to centralized management. It is more effective to administer a data management strategy centrally rather than trust remote employees to follow a complex set of rules and regulations. The newest backup appliances enable a central device to manage any and all remote locations as easily if they were all on one local site. This ensures a consistent program covering all locations, even those where no IT resources may be located. When we talk about analytics and machine learning, new analytics and machine learning capabilities can enhance data utilization, ensure the backup appliances will perform at peak efficiency. Today's IT resilient backup solutions are actively inspecting every file during the backup for ransomware infections. They look for things like too many change files, system files changing that shouldn't change, inappropriate rates of change, files believed to have been corrupted, are then automatically flagged so that they're not used for recovery. Upon detection, the solution will automatically notify administrators through email, notices on their dashboard, so recovery can begin immediately. And when we talk about the proactive detection, I'm going to highlight one of the key features here in the Unittrends solution called recovery assurance. And what recovery assurance allows you to do is automate recovery testing so you understand the impact of a disaster event before it ever occurs. So you can really outline your boot order, networking information, resource allocations for all of these machines, even choose an executable test to run. And then these type of reports can be emailed to you and anyone else in the organization that cares about the fact that your backups are validated and tested. Great for auditing. We have a lot of customers operating under HIPAA audit rules. These recovery assurance reports can be used directly for auditing to validate that your backups have been tested. So that brings me to the second polling question of the event. I'm going to kick it back to Kevin.
Great, thank you, Max. I just want to see, get a general vibe of the room. How confident are you in meeting your RTO or RPO metrics in case of a disaster such as ransomware or something like that? Are you very confident, somewhat confident, not confident, or maybe you don't even have RPO or RTO metrics to meet, which again is perfectly fine. I know some companies don't have them set up, and it's more of just a decision based on the IT department itself, but just want to see what the general census of the room is here. So I'll leave this open for a minute or two. Go ahead and punch in your answers. All right, still see some people completing here. I'll give you guys about 10 to 15 more seconds here to finish up your answers. All right, looks pretty much in line with what we traditionally see. I'll turn it back over to you, Max.
Thanks, Kevin, and again, thanks everybody for participating in the polling. Results, like Kevin mentioned, as expected, very interesting. Very few people were very confident. The majority, somewhere in the somewhat confident to not confident, and there's also a good group of people that don't have set recovery point and recovery time objectives defined. And like Kevin mentioned, that's understandable. Sometimes IT is both in the role of implementation and education, right? Really training not only the users of these computer systems, but the business leaders on what metrics need to be defined for you to go and actually implement that strategy. And when it comes to managing and testing and making sure data is off-site and recoverable, it can seem cumbersome and it can feel like it's going to take more time than the resources businesses have on hand. And that leads me to my next point, which is becoming much more popular in the industry, which is data management as a service, right? Everything is in technology space is becoming a service, and it may be cheaper and more effective to outsource the archiving process and location. There are partners who are available who can follow your program, ensure files are stored and protected at remote locations or in the cloud. An archival cloud can provide safe and trustworthy, easily recoverable storage. Look for cloud storage that provides tiered retention pricing, so you don't have to pay for more than you need. You should be able to select the number of years that data must be retained and cloud pricing to match that. It's also worth watching out for cloud options that charge you to access and retrieve your data, as this can become extremely expensive if multiple recoveries are required. Remove the burden of retention management and operating by sending data to remote clouds, and that can certainly be cheaper than managing your own physical backup media. So now I'm going to jump into the Unittrends interface and really run through the simplicity, ease of use, flexibility, and security of the Unittrends solution and how it can help you and your business manage your data best practices. So just to jump into the interface here, the way you would access the Unittrends UI is just by typing in the IP address in a local browser. It gives you a centralized console to both quickly see all of the information that's relevant to you and your business when it comes to business continuity. Unittrends customers sign in the morning, they see this dashboard. The dashboard provides high-level summary information, whether it's about your backups, replication, recoveries, and even recovery testing, all listed in one place, so in 15 seconds you can glean all the information you need and go back to managing the thousands of other processes that you're responsible for. It's completely customizable, so you can pick and choose which tiles are visible. You can drag and drop different tiles around so that information that's really relevant and pertinent to you is front and center. On the top right, you'd see any alerts, if ransomware was detected on a specific machine, at what time, if a connection was dropped, if you need to update your support contract. And if at any point with the Unittrends solution you have questions about how things are working, you can always just open a support tunnel and then reach out to our 100% 24/7, 365 US-based support team down in South Carolina. They can VPN right into your appliance, check logs, troubleshoot, get you back up and running. Unittrends has an industry-leading 99% customer satisfaction rating, in large part due to the fact that we have 100% US-based support. You call into that support line, there's no auto teller, there's no hold music. You're going to get connected within 3 rings directly to an engineer that can help work with you to solve any problems that you have. Now, of course, high-level information is important, but if you want to really dig into the weeds, all you got to do is click on one of these respective tiles. So here we see our recovery assurance dashboard tile talking about the success of recovery testing. Did we meet those RPO and RTO objectives? And the executable tests that we chose to run in each machine, were they successful? And these tests can range from PowerShell scripts, malware scans, Windows service tests, or even application-specific testing like Exchange, SQL, checking a SQL instance, or running a query with a validated output. So if I were to click on these 9 successful tests that have run, it'll bring me to the correlated report, that recovery assurance report. You see here the full step-by-step process I showed you on a slide earlier of the full recovery test, from configuration to powering it on to running that executable for testing against RPO and RTO compliance. In this way, you're able to automate and ensure that all of your backups are recoverable, compliant, and that the files and applications within them behave as expected. This goes far beyond what other solutions in the industry are doing in terms of, say, screenshot verification, where they'll shoot you a screenshot of a booted machine. Hitting a hung login screen is great, but actually diving into that operating system and accessing the applications and validating that is incredibly important to ensure recovery will occur. And just to kind of highlight, there's a lot of different reports here that are generated within the solution. You can customize the dates, the columns, and then export each out either to a PDF or CSV, as well as automatically include these reports on email notification. So down on the Configure tab, this is just where you're going to connect the Unittrends appliance or appliances to the clients you're looking to protect, to the backup copy targets you're looking to replicate data to. So you can see here we have multiple appliances being run through this interface. You can add, I believe, up to 10,000 appliances to run out of a single console. You can select where you want that data to write to beyond the appliance. Do you want to replicate it to the Unittrends cloud, another Unittrends appliance at your own DR site, third-party cloud like AWS, Google Cloud, or Rackspace, as well as replicating or archiving to a NAS through SIFS or NFS or disk or tape through fiber or SAS connection. So there's a lot of options when it comes to archiving your data. It's always important to ensure that bandwidth is not going to be impacted just because you're replicating data off-site. So we allow you to really easily on a schedule ensure that during business hours, during the week, you're only going to use, for example, 10% of your available bandwidth. This will limit any impact to the end users of your organization. There will be no lag or frustration just because your backup data is replicating off-site. I do want to highlight here with the appliance, you can set up email notifications for different users, as well as, of course, security being top of mind, enable encryption with AES 256-bit encryption with your own passphrase, both at rest and on the fly. When we go to the Protected Assets tab, this is where Unittrends customers go and connect the appliance to the machines they're looking to protect, whether it's connecting directly to the operating system of a physical server or virtual machine with our agent. Just put in the name, IP address, credentials for Windows machines, we can push that agent directly to it. If you want to connect to a virtual environment agentlessly, just click Add Virtual Host, put in the IP address and credentials of that VMware, Hyper-V, Xen, or Nutanix AHV host, and then we're able to connect to that hypervisor and then manage the snapshotting process of all the underlying VMs. You can see here on the right is where you're able to manage retention. Now with our 10.3 release, you can set up GFS rotation directly on that appliance, right? Grandfather, father, son, keeping yearlies, monthlies, weeklies, and dailies of all the machines that you need that long-term archival for directly on the appliance so that you can quickly access and recover that data, even test old backups automatically to ensure recoverability without having to run to Iron Mountain to pull tapes out of the tape library. So you can see here we have our SQL server that we've connected through the hypervisor for snapshotting. There are use cases where using an agent on a virtual machine could be helpful. For example, here's that same server that we've connected to with an agent, and our agent gives us the granularity and visibility into that system to do application native backup. So we're able to isolate that SQL server, that SQL data, and do per database transaction level backups on each individual database. So we could recover individual databases back to a point in time, as well as quickly being able to recover that SQL server from a point in time just through that snapshot recovery. When it comes to creating backup jobs, Unittrends makes it incredibly simple. You can see here on the job manager all the jobs that have been created, their schedule, when they last run, when they'll next run. You can always drill in the individual columns to quickly isolate details and information that you need visibility into. You can see we have backup jobs, replication jobs running, as well as that data copy access process, which is the automated DR testing. So I'll absolutely go into that a little bit further in a moment, but I do want to highlight how simple Unittrends makes it to create policies that allow you to manage your data according to your objectives, right? So you can create backup jobs based on different tiers of data that you have within your environment. So different machines that fall within the same compliance requirements, you can then set up in one place your recovery point objectives, your backup window, retention requirements beyond that GFS rotation, as well as where is that data going? Like, where is it going to go to cold media that you connected to? Is it going to go to a hot target, be it the Unittrends cloud or another Unittrends appliance? In one place, we've given you the ability to easily manage and create backup schedules based on your own business requirements. And it's really exciting because where the rubber meets the road here is not only are you able to create backup jobs based on these requirements, but through data copy access, you're able to automatically test and validate that those requirements are being met. So with data copy access, it's a way of automating recovery testing. So generally, ideally, you would want to select your entire environment, do a full DR test automatically every day, every week. Now for the demo here, and just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to just select a few machines just to kind of highlight how this works, maybe an AD server or SQL server and our file server. You can create different profiles to test against for RPO and RTO requirements, and then you'd select the frequency that you want this test to run. Now, for the folks on the polling who answered that they were very confident in meeting those RPO and RTO objectives, either they're already using the Unittrends solution and doing this testing, or you're doing manual testing to ensure that you're hitting these goals. And backups are kind of like Schrodinger's cat, right? Just because the backup has a green check mark next to it doesn't mean that recoveries are going to go off without a hitch. And so you have to test to validate and understand the impact of downtime. And manual testing is really laborious, right? It takes a lot of time and effort away from other functions within the business. Automating this process and giving you that item-level executable test gives you still the visibility and understanding without all of the time and energy spent doing manual testing. So here, after you define the schedule, you can go in and outline the options on restore. So, select a specific boot order. Our SQL server will boot after our Active Directory. Where is this server going to restore to? What host? What data store? What network? We can set this up on an isolated sandbox network. We're going to be using the appliances, storage, and CPU and RAM to spin up all these machines, but it's going to be on a secondary isolated network, so it's not going to impact production on restore. You can re-IP the machine on restore, as well as select a specific test. So I've mentioned the different kind of tests you can run, whether it's a PowerShell script, a malware scan. This gives you that granularity and application or file level validation to understand that, for example, the SQL data from a specific table is what you would expect it to be. And we're just connecting directly through Active Directory in that isolated network to access that database and run that query to validate that application data. And so that test will run. It'll spin up all of your machines, run those executables, tear it down, and send you that report that I showed earlier. But data copy access is more than just automated testing. It allows you to use your backup data to create a provisioned lab environment, to spin up all the machines based on those requirements, but then leave it open for you and your team to go in and run your own testing, whether it's patch testing, upgrade testing, that you don't want to run through production and hope and pray. You can use this lab environment to make sure that everything will work as intended in production. And then failover. With one click, you can live failover all of the machines based on your preset requirements, like boot order and network requirements and resource allocation. So we're really inputting your DR playbook directly into the solution itself. So with one click, you can fail over everything as you would expect. Now, with Unittrends, we have our own cloud. And within the cloud, we offer DR as a service. So if you're replicating data to our cloud, you can opt for an SLA guaranteed white glove recovery service. You call us and we ensure that your environment is up in our cloud guaranteed within 1 hour or 24 hours. And we do the same thing that you're doing locally with data copy access in our clouds. We're understanding what machines need to be restored, what's the networking information, IP, network mask, gateway, boot order. And then we're taking that backup copies that are in our data centers and pre-building them as replicas, offline VMs, so that in the event of a disaster, you give us a call and we just go and turn on all those machines, set up networking, and then push an SSL VPN client to you and your end users, or you can connect directly through an IPsec tunnel, both for testing as well as live cutover, failover to your environment hosted in our cloud with that guarantee. Now, beyond the backup schedules and testing itself, like I mentioned, the backups are really only as good as your ability to recover. And Unittrends makes it really easy to both manage what you've protected as well as recover files, full servers, virtual machines, bare metal recoveries, and even specific applications. So you can see here on the right, we have the ability to filter by name, by date, by type. Even if the data is hosted in the cloud, you can filter by backup copy hot and quickly access that data as if it was hosted locally, right? So there's no secondary cloud interface that you need to sign into. It's all managed through this single pane of glass, single UI. And with our backup browser here, you can quickly access old archive backups on the appliance itself to quickly put backups on hold, directly recover files from specific dates or times, allows you to really quickly understand where files are located and access them and recover them, whether it's a full system or specific files for ransomware or single file level recovery use cases as well. And then when it comes to recovering files off of the backups, it's pretty simple, right? You click on the machine, you click on a point in time, and click Recover Files. We can recover files directly out of agentless snapshots just by mounting the virtual disk and then browsing through the directory tree. Same thing for agent-based backups. We can just go in and quickly find the files we're looking for. Now, with our agent, we also have the ability to do searches because our agent has indexed those machines, so we're able to go in and select the machine we're trying to recover a file from and say that CEO is like, I lost that PDF and I forget what it was called or where it was located. You don't need to go through the directory tree. You can actually just search based on file extension, based on date and size. And because our agent has indexed that machine, it allows you to quickly recover and isolate the individual files or systems that you're looking for, and then recover them back to any system that you've connected to, back to the original directory. You can create your own directory for restore, change the file dates, override existing files or not. So a lot of options and granularity here in terms of how to recover specific files. When recovering full virtual machines as well, there's a couple different ways to quickly do it. One would be through our Replica feature, which I mentioned is how we operate our DR as a service in our cloud. With either Windows machines or VMware VMs today, you can pre-build them from the backup data as an offline virtual machine on a secondary host, what we call a replica. This replica then can hold multiple recovery points. It can be on the appliance itself, so you can actually use the Unittrends appliance for failover beyond just backups, as well as pre-build them on secondary VMware or Hyper-V hosts. In the event of a disaster, this replica is already built, so you just go and turn that machine on. The recovery time in that case is just as long as it takes to boot that machine. Another option we have is called instant recovery. And what instant recovery does is it utilizes vMotion for VMware or storage live migration for Hyper-V. We create an NFS share directly on the appliance's storage, whatever that storage that you allocate for instant recovery here. And then we connect that through an API call to the hypervisor and then stand up that machine. And then once that machine is up and running, we'll migrate the data from the NFS share to the data store utilizing vMotion for VMware or storage live migration for Hyper-V. So you can see here, we'll do this in audit mode. We'll do a live restore just to kind of show how quickly this is done. We don't have to rebuild the whole machine before turning it on. It's a great way of transforming instead of having to rebuild. So choose the data store. Audit mode just means this machine is going to restore with the NIC disconnected, so it's not going to replace the original machine. And then we can change the name. Data management demo, so we're all on the same page, is going to restore to host 23. So no matter the size of the machine, we're able to recover full machines in minutes in what might otherwise have taken hours. So if I go to our vCenter client here, you'll see here's that host 23, here's all the underlying VMs, here's that original SQL server. In a moment here, now that NAS data store has been connected. So this is a great way to easily access both files and full systems, either for testing or for live recoveries, right? You get ransomware detected on a specific machine, you do an investigation to determine the cause of those rapid changes, and then you can quickly recover individual machines within minutes. Here, that machine's populated now, and mitigate any effect of that ransomware. So now that machine is populated. It will be configured and powered on. Now it's powered on. We can access it for testing. Now, just because this is a demo and a test here, we can just go and tear it down directly through the UI. It'll make an API call back to the hypervisor and tear it down in that virtual environment as well. So we've talked through file level recoveries, full VM recovery through instant recovery or Replica. That was a SQL server that we just recovered. If you just want the ability to recover individual databases, like I mentioned earlier, you can recover those databases to a specific point in time because we're truncating those transaction logs. So you can recover back to the original SQL server, a different SQL server, down to the minute. So a lot of flexibility and granularity in terms of how you're able to accomplish these different types of restores, as well as just being incredibly intuitive, right? There's not a lot of training required to understand how to operate the solution. And if at any point you have questions, you can, of course, just reach out to support either through phone or through chat. And the last use case that I want to highlight is bare metal restore. For all Windows machines more recent than 2003, every file level backup of those systems is recoverable as a bare metal recovery because we're taking both the system state and metadata necessary for bare metal restores as part of the file level backup. So if you go to the appliance's IP in your network share, click on virtual failover, there's a Windows PE ISO image that you can use to deploy, either burn it to disk or flash drive or just load it into your virtual host. Boot from there, that'll open up a GUI, and that GUI will point right back to the appliance so you can pick any file level point in time to recover from. So you don't need to run separate bare metal backups to be able to accomplish bare metal restores. For physical servers, you can even pre-build those as virtual replicas on secondary hosts. So really easy to manage both your backup schedules, automate your testing, as well as ensure that all of your files and backups are quickly accessible and ultimately recoverable without spending a tremendous amount of time managing the overall process. And then on the Protect tab, I just want to highlight here, this is where you can get a great high-level summary of all the machines that you've configured, whether the backups were valid, replication. If there's any issues at all, you'd see a warning or a red mark here. You can go and view the details and kind of read through the logs to see what the issue may have been. Now, you don't need to be an expert in understanding Unittrends logs to operate the solution. Like I've mentioned before, you have questions, we're here to help. Open a support tunnel, reach out to us at any time of the day, any day of the year, and our support engineers will quickly access your machine, check the logs for you, and get you back up and running. So hopefully that quick demo was able to illustrate how simple, flexible, and secure the Unittrends solution is and how it can really help you manage your overall data management strategy directly through a single pane of glass in that backup console. So going to jump back into the deck here, and please, if you have questions, chat them in. We'll address them at the end of the presentation. But just in conclusion, right, I want to talk through the switch to data management is happening. As the industry shifts from just managing backups to managing data, IT has new options to assist that process. Smarter backup appliances can relieve much of the manual process while ensuring that business-critical data is preserved and recoverable when needed. For the greatest degree of confidence, you can partner with a specialist with their own backup cloud, and they can assume the primary operational responsibility for you to ensure recoverability and business continuity. So I'm going to kick it back to Kevin here for the last polling question of the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, Max. Yeah, I just have a quick one for everyone. I just want to see, out of everyone in the room right now, if you're going to be reevaluating your backup and disaster recovery solution within the next year. So I'm going to go ahead and open that one up. Simple yes or no. Go ahead and submit your answers now. All right, about 10 more seconds here. I see everyone's just submitting those answers. A couple out there still in process, so I'll let you guys punch those in. All right, great. I'll turn it back to you, Max. Some good answers there.
Yes, thanks so much, Kevin, and thanks everybody for participating in the polling today. Appreciate your attendance on this webinar. If you like what you saw, if you're more interested in how the Unittrends solution may be able to help you in your business, check us out online. Go to unittrends.com. We have resources like our 5-minute DR health check. We're doing demos like this one every day this month for people who are looking to learn more about the solution. Or if you just want to talk to somebody, you can always reach out to us through phone or through email and can connect with one of our continuity experts to advise and kind of consult you through what you're trying to do and if this Unittrends solution can help out with your overall data management strategy. So in conclusion, what the Unittrends solution provides is an all-in-one enterprise backup and continuity solution that eliminates any finger pointing because it's all managed through one vendor, gives you less active management work while still ensuring that local and cloud continuity with automated testing with that recovery assurance feature. Because we're built on a hardened Linux platform on CentOS, your data is more secure and protected against ransomware than in a native Windows backup solution, as well as doing automated proactive ransomware testing and detection. We're able to give you an understanding if anything is going on in your environment beyond just backing up the data. And again, this is all supported by a 100% US-based support team down in Columbia, South Carolina, giving us a 99% customer satisfaction rating and a 95% customer renewal retention rate. So as Kevin mentioned earlier on the other presentation, please follow us and like us on all available social media platforms. We're constantly doing webinars and events like this. I've been traveling all across the country this year, going to different conferences, lunch and learn events, and different events that we've been doing to kind of help connect with our customers, understand the problems and challenges they're facing as IT is kind of in constant fluid change. So the Unittrends solution, because it's so flexible and because it's so simple to manage, has really been able to solve a lot of problems, and it's really exciting for me to go out there and see people who really appreciate what we're able to do and ultimately save people's butts in the event of a disaster. So thanks so much for joining. We got about 10 minutes here or so for questions. So Kev, if you want to read any questions off to me, be happy to address them.
Sure thing. Yeah, it looks like we got some good questions here so far. I'll start with Tim here. He wants to know which hypervisor works best with Unittrends. They have Hyper-V, and he wants to know if that's kind of an acceptable hypervisor that will work with Unittrends and what else is out there. Oh, Max, you might be on mute still.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we operate extremely well within Hyper-V. Of course, VMware, Xen Hypervisor, we have the functionality for snapshotting, though there are some native limitations built in within Xen. And now we've released support for Nutanix Acropolis Hypervisor. We've had a ton of success as people have been migrating to Nutanix and that Acropolis hypervisor, integrating with it, helping to manage and administer your backups, replication, and disaster recovery with all 4 of those hypervisors. And the Unittrends appliance itself is built on a KVM hypervisor. If you're using another hypervisor beyond those 4 that I mentioned, we can still protect the data, treating each virtual machine as if it was physical by connecting directly to the operating system with an agent. So I know people are a little afraid of utilizing agents. They're certainly not required for VMware, Hyper-V, Xen, or AHV. However, they do give you some added functionality and granularity, as well as just treating those servers as if they were physical, allowing you to restore Hyper-V virtual machines into VMware, back into Hyper-V, into Nutanix Acropolis. So there's a lot more flexibility associated with that because it's not in that native format. But Hyper-V is absolutely a virtual hypervisor that we support incredibly well. So no need to change that platform.
Awesome. Thank you, Max. I have a question here from Morgan. I think I know what your answer is going to be to this one, but I'll still ask. He wants to know, how often should the testing of backup data should be planned? So is it every 3 months, 6 months? What's that good kind of sweet spot to be testing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's no one right answer to that. I mean, especially it depends on the way you're doing testing. Is it a manual test? Because then it requires a lot more resources and time. I certainly wouldn't want to have to do manual DR testing every day, nor would I recommend it. But when the way that process works is automated, you can really maximize the amount of testing that's done so that after every backup's completed, that night they're tested for validity. So in our solution with the automated testing, at a minimum, it's once a week. But in our lab and with a lot of clients that I talk to, they do it every night or every other night. So it's really kind of up to you to determine what's the best use case for your business. But in terms of at a minimum with our solution, it automatically does it every week.
That's a good question. All right. 2 questions here from Tom. He's wondering, is our cloud solution HIPAA compliant, and does the cloud solution support data encryption where we hold the keys?
Yeah, that's a great question, and the answer is yes to both of those. So the cloud, our cloud solution is HIPAA compliant, covers a lot of other compliance. These are SOC 2, SSAE 16, CGIS, GDPR, but yeah, HIPAA absolutely is one of those requirements. We have data centers across the world. In the United States, we have 5 spread throughout geo-redundantly. All the data will stay within your country of origin or region of origin. So if you're in the United States, your data will not leave the United States. If you're in Canada, your data will not leave Canada. And then you're using your own passphrase for that encryption at rest and on the fly. Into our cloud. So we're not able to access the data itself, so it is still secure. And if you have more questions around security, around the way our DR as a service operates, or just the Unittrends Cloud, I would definitely encourage people to look at the Cloud FAQ or DR as a Service FAQ available on our website, as well as feel free to reach out to me or one of our continuity experts to consult to see if the solution would work well for your environment. But in terms of HIPAA, in terms of all those things, yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a great question. Another question here from Stefan. He wants to know, is instant recovery for VMware and Hyper-V only, or can it work with Citrix Xen server?
That is a great question. At this point, instant recovery is only possible within VMware and Hyper-V. However, you can, if you're using Xen, you could use an agent to back up that machine and then build it as a replica on a separate host, even on the appliance itself, so that the machine's already pre-built and updated every time a backup comes across, so recovery time would be incredibly quick. It just takes as long as it takes to boot that replica machine. But yeah, to this day, that storage migration processes with vMotion and storage live migration with Hyper-V, it makes it so that those 2 hypervisors are the only ones that we're able to do that instant recovery for. But the replica process could still work if you utilize the agent.
Great. Next question here. Can we connect and back up a cloud host at all at a third party?
Can we connect and back up a cloud host at all from a third party? Yeah. So if Depending on a few different things, right? So it depends. If you're trying to do like a remote-based backup, it just depends on the connection speed. If you have access to that secondary, that cloud hypervisor, you could always deploy an instance of Unittrends software to do a local backup of that host. Then it'll compress and deduplicate the data, and then you could replicate it back to your local site or to a secondary cloud. If you're already utilizing a private cloud today, you can still use Unittrends with that cloud by installing a virtual appliance on that instance and then replicating your local data to it and that data back to your local site, or just all of it to the Unittrends cloud for DR management as well. So yeah, as long as the connection speed is appropriate. So if you're using our block agent, because we're not doing file level, we're doing it on a larger block level, the connection speed doesn't have to be as fast. So traditionally we were recommending 50 Mbit per second. Now I believe it's dropped down to 20, 25 for remote-based backups, but preferably you would have a local instance of Unittrends protecting that environment as well.
Awesome, thank you, Max. All right, looks like we are coming up to the top of the hour, so I just wanted to get one more question in, but if you do have any additional questions, still feel free to chat them in or ask away in the WebEx, and we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards. So the last question here, Max, is do you guys have any standardized audit or compliant reports within the dashboard, or can they be created?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me jump back into the interface here. So in terms of audit and compliance reports, that recovery assurance report is used for a lot of our users for auditing. If I go back to all the report categories, we do have just a general compliance report that will highlight all of the tests that have run within that time span and give you not only did you meet your RPO and RTO, but what was the actual recovery time and recovery point objectives. And these can all be included in automated reports through email as well as through the dashboard. So you can customize the dates here. And so, yeah, absolutely. That's one of the key features of all of these reports is being able to bring all of the data about your data, right, the metadata on the backups, into one place so that you can ensure compliance and provide people with the necessary information quickly without having to labor through Excel and trying to piece all this stuff together from different sources.
Awesome. Thank you, Max. All right, so with that, we will wrap up for the end of the webinar here. If you guys still have any questions, again, we'll leave the bridge open so you can feel free to chat those questions away and we can take it up with you offline. But just wanted to say thank you, Max. I know that you're always a very busy guy to track down, so we appreciate you hopping on the call today. This has been very helpful and informative. Just a couple quick reminders. Again, make sure that you go ahead and like us on all forms of social media, again, so you don't miss out on any great opportunities to visit more webinars such as this one. And again, we'll be sending out a recording of today's WebEx, or webinar, I should say, as well as we'll be contacting the winner of the $500 gift card once we wrap up here and we get all the attendance logged in. So thank you all for showing up. Max, I don't know if you have anything else that you wanted to add before we sign off today.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks so much for the time, everybody. Feel free to continue to chat questions in. I'll address them after the webinar, either through chat or through email. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to reach out directly to me at mlindauer@unittrends.com. I hope to see you guys soon at different conferences and events throughout the country, and I hope you have a great rest of the week and a good weekend as we finish up 2018.
Thank you all so much for attending.